Greetings, everyone. Welcome to COS Indiana Live. Tonight, May 13th. So, Ken, my co-host this evening. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing pretty good, Dale. How about yourself?
Good. Doing fine. This year's going by, isn't it? I tell you,
It's hard to believe it's the month of May in Indianapolis already.
yeah, Indy 500 coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah, that and even 46500. Have you heard of the 46500?
No. What's that? Oh, your bypass.
Yeah, the circle around Indianapolis. It's they have a regular 46500 just about every day of the year.
Every day. I know. I have traveled that a few times. Yes, I believe what you're saying. Well, anyway, Ken, as co-host this evening, Ken, of course, will be participating with our guests, but Ken will also be monitoring viewer comments and questions. So if you are viewing this evening through Facebook or YouTube, feel free to enter a comment or a question in the chat section, and Ken will monitor those and will certainly bring any to our attention for our comment or reaction. So Ken will be monitoring that. Ken, tonight is live stream number 244. You've been on board for 108. We're closing in on that 250 mark, aren't we?
It's going to be here before we know it, Dale.
Yes, it will. It will. As a matter of fact, I think June, our June roundtable, which is June 24th, will be the 250th broadcast. So
I know you're working hard to make that a special one. So let's hope
that's right. That's right. Yeah. All right. Well, Ken, tell us about that QR code up there. I'm so familiar with QR codes. I mean, I'm just
I know you use them for everything now, don't you?
What?
You use them for just about everything now, don't you?
Oh yes, just about everything.
Yes. I know. If you go in some place and they don't have a QR code, you tell them they need a QR code.
I do. I've done that. Yes, I have. Yes.
Well, that QR code right there will get you a subscription as a subscriber to COS Indiana Live, and we encourage you to go ahead and take your smartphone out and grab that QR code and become a member and a subscriber of COS Indiana Live. There's lots in store there for you, and we're looking to make that bigger and better all the time. So get your phone, get that done, because we need all the subscribers we can get. We want to get this show going bigger and better, and we need our subscribers to do so.
Good deal. The
thing I want to talk about with that QR code tonight is not so much about becoming a subscriber, but you'll know that the last show we did with Chris Thompson was all about servant leadership, and we wanted to bring that link, make that link available tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about what Chris's objective is for that. And one of Convention of States' core values is to cultivate servant leadership. And this philosophy of leadership that serves others as its primary focus has been a foundational part of COS culture from its inception. So we are also committed to this cause, and we have a department dedicated to spreading a servant leadership culture across our grassroots leadership. So if you're interested in participating in upcoming servant leadership classes, Chris has provided us a link so that you can find out all about it and get yourself involved in servant leadership. I'm going to post that link in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and get that in there now so you can see we have the servant leadership message, and let me go ahead and post that link in there. I'm going to do that right now, so you can go ahead and grab that link and get involved. Servant leadership is a wonderful program, and I think the more people we can get involved in that, the better.
Yeah. I think we had a good session with Chris on our last broadcast, and I think Chris is doing a great job heading that up. Actually, the servant leadership program is part of the mentoring department.
Yeah.
So there are other courses involved in the program, all part of the mentoring, COS mentoring department. So, but
Yeah.
servant leadership is certainly one of the main programs. So
We had a request to also get the URL for the subscription base too. So those that can't use or don't want to use the QR code, I'll post that URL in the chat room as well.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. Well, I want to bring up the debt clock, and this is something I'm going to try and make this. I'm going to give it a full screen here, Ken. So, folks, we're still here. You should still be able to hear us. This is dealing with the national debt is one of the pillars of the Convention of States resolution calling for a Convention of States for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. And one of the pillars of that resolution is proposing amendments that would deal with our national debt. Folks, we're closing in on $35 trillion in national debt. There's so much information on this chart. We're not going to get into it, but we want to focus on the upper left-hand corner here where you see the big numbers, 34 trillion, 734, blah, blah, blah. We're closing in on $35 trillion in national debt. Ken, I think if you recall, one night we timed that, and like every 30 seconds it went up $1 million, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So, and it keeps climbing. You hear about this once in a while, and you hear about government shutdowns, and whenever they deal with the budget. But this should be something that we should be talking about all the time and addressing. It is a national priority, and it's a main priority in my mind, but it just doesn't seem to get the attention that I think it deserves. So we're closing in on $35 trillion, Ken. I tell you, that's unbelievable. I can remember back in some years ago. Geez, I think when Convention of States even got started, I don't even know that we were at 10 trillion in debt. But so it just continues to grow and grow and grow. So just want to bring that to everyone's attention. One of our volunteers, Gary Harbaugh, is doing a series on our national debt called Debt Avalanche. And Gary has been doing recording some videos. We play them whenever he's got one completed. I'm learning a lot. There are a lot of things associated with just the numbers here that you're seeing. A lot of things associated with this, and for this country to go under financially would have tremendous impact in a lot of different ways. So Gary's really kind of educating us all on this, I believe. So he's doing a great job.
Yeah, one of our viewers has asked, do any of those numbers go down? That's
I don't think so. I
haven't seen any of them go down. So
no. So I'm going to close that, Ken, so that we
don't want to get seasick all in one night here. So
right. Well, Ken, let's bring on our first guest this evening, and this young man has been with Convention of States for a long time, and he's embarked on a new project that we're part of. But and we had him on some months ago, and he was just getting started with the new project. So he's going to give us an update tonight. So I'm anxious to hear him, and I want to bring on our first guest, Mr. Murray Edwards. Hello, Murray.
Hey, Dale, Ken, and that was gracious when you said young man.
I
I appreciate that. I have been called that in a long time.
Well, good. I know it. It makes me feel good to be called that once in a while too. So,
Other than some of the other names I typically get called on a day-to-day basis, the young man is pretty nice.
Murray is. We're gonna get in. We're gonna get into knowing a little bit more about Murray. But Murray, you're still currently state director in Alabama, right?
That is correct. I think I'm going into my 7th year,
Are you really?
and that probably puts me. They haven't run me off yet. They probably wanted to several times, but that probably puts me up there with folks who have stayed in that one position for quite a long time.
Yes, yes. I would say that you are. Yes, uh, yes. If I recall correctly. Well, Murray, let's give us some briefly a little bit about your background.
Sure. I was a business consultant for about 35 years, working with the small business community, and retired and was always politically involved even while I was working, but got deeper involved and actually started doing work with Heritage Action. And of course, Heritage Actions now has come on board and has been a supporter. But I heard about COS while I was doing some work with this, Heritage Action. Joined, was a volunteer for about a year, and somehow or another ended up as a state director. And that's, like I said, that was about 7 years ago now. So pretty much that's it. We continue to try to grow here and fight off every time there's an effort to try to remove the resolutions. We continue to fight them off and win.
Now, you said Heritage Action. Is that part of the Heritage
Yeah,
Foundation?
yeah. Heritage Foundation has a activist group, I guess you might want to call it Heritage Action. Now they typically have dealt with federal bills. And one of the things I wanted them to do many years ago is to get more active in their states. And now that they started doing that a little bit, so we sort of are in lockstep with a lot of different things that COS does along with Heritage Action. And sometimes we can sort of link arms together and fight a particular battle together when we have a joint mission, I guess you might want to say, with
Oh, okay. All right.
local legislation.
All right. Good. Good. Well, I know you. We've talked about you're currently state director.
Mhm.
Tell us a bit more about your COS story. Where did you first hear about COS, and
Sure.
did
I
you
was, to
fill
be
any
honest
other
with you,
positions?
Dale, I was on a weekly call with Heritage Action,
Okay.
and I was asking about, are you going to be doing state stuff? And lo and behold, a gentleman by the name of DeMint, I got a message. And from there, he said, you need to check out Convention of States. So I did. Honestly spent about 6 months, got into it, and it says, this may be the only solution that's going to save the country.
You spent
And
6 months. What?
I really did. I dug into it deeply.
Wow.
And because you hear all the hoo-ha about this is going to happen, that's going to happen. So I dug into it to be on the safe, be sure. And after I convinced myself that this is a good cause, that's basically when I got involved. Like I said, I signed up as a volunteer, became a district captain for a very short time frame, the state director. Retired or left after I'd been on board for, I guess, about 8 or 9 months. And because I'd had so much background in building teams and what I used to do as a consultant, I said, hey, if nobody else wants it, because there were people who had been with the organization longer than I had, and I didn't want to take anything away from any of those folks. And I said, well, if nobody else wants it, then I'm willing to step in and try to do what we can do. So when I started, we had about 13, 14,000 volunteers or petition signers. And as of last year, I think we're at 46 or 47,000.
All right. Good. Great.
So it continues to grow.
Yeah.
Um,
Good.
so It's
And
been a good thing. We've got a good team, good people working with the state legislators, and I spend a lot of my time working with people down at the state. And
Alabama is a pass state.
that is correct. Back in 2015, I believe it was, and there have been many efforts to uh, rescind do it. In fact, they've done it. Of the 7 years I've been in, they've done it 3 times, and we've been able to fend it
Tell
off.
everybody what a pass state is, because Indiana's a pass state as well.
Sure.
But tell everybody what a pass state is.
Well, as a past state, that means the state legislative body has passed a resolution for Article 5, the Convention of States, Article 5 resolutions, basically calling for term limits, calling for restraints on spending, restraints on the federal government. So we passed it back in May of 2015, May 22nd of 2015. And like I said, we've got a few folks who don't like it, and every so often they'll make a run at it. And as a past state, we're fortunate enough that we have the ability to work on local legislation, local issues like libraries and all those type of situations that occurred. So we've got some good people around the state that are deeply involved in their local politics. If you listen to Mark, it starts locally. It starts in your home area. So I push that every day. That if you don't know what's going on at the city and county and school level, then you've got to get involved, because it all works. They may start at the city and county, but they may end up in the state. And if they don't end up in the state, they may end up in Washington someplace. So you got to understand what these folks are doing at all levels, because there's problems at all levels.
That's the self-governance thing, getting involved. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good deal. Well, as if you didn't have enough to do as state director, here, I don't know what the official date was, but you started a new adventure called the Newscasters Studio.
That is correct. We went into beta of November of last year.
Okay.
And I guess you could say we went into full production on January 1st of 2024. So the site itself has been up since November, but like I said, we're in full production now. We're fortunate enough we've got wonderful people coming on board. The little sign that you've got, or the logo you've got up when you first start your show about why truth in media matters. That's what we're all about, is making sure that what you hear is truthful, and you won't hear any propaganda. We've got folks from all over the country who come on. Some write articles, some do podcasts, some do videos. You guys have graciously joined the platform to talk about what's going on. And, so everything from constitutional issues to authors that know about certain issues that come on board, border issues. We've got a gentleman down on the southern border who does a weekly show, so a gentleman out in California, or actually up in Washington, he does a weekly show that talks about what's going on in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. So people need to hear that. They hear snippets, on the daily news.
Well, even if they hear it at all.
That's true. So what our vision was, or the purpose was to bring a voice to folks who have been shut down. They're wonderful local people, regional people, and national folks who need to be able to get their message out to people, and that's what we built. So it's a podcasting news platform. We have folks who are writing articles. We have folks who are doing shows like you do. I do a show that talks about everything that goes on in Washington, and so we continue to grow.
Good deal. Let's. I got the website here. Let's bring that up here and take a look at it. This is what it looks like when you go to The
Newscasters.com.
.com. The news.
The newscasters.com is the actual domain.
Okay.
But the homepage, if you scroll up, we have what we call our spotlight section. So as a new show comes in, we show the top 4 new shows that are come in. So if somebody has another one tonight, we'll roll off that. And then these are some of our, at this particular moment, these are some of the most active podcasters. You got folks that, doing that kind of stuff. And when you click on that link, it takes you to that show. Now, we also have, on top of that, we have the studio. Once you go to the studio, you'll see a list of all our contributors from all over the country. And once you click on a link, like your link, what will happen is all your shows that you've done are present. So somebody can scroll down and take a look at a particular show. And something that we do that other platforms don't do, we promote every show that comes up. So when you put a show up, or I put a show up, or Richie puts a show up, whoever it might be, that show is broadcast across all the social media platforms more than one time. It goes out usually and recycles a couple of times a week. So what we're doing now is building an audience for our contributors and naturally for the platform itself. So if you go a little bit further, you see what we're calling the TNS news feed.
Yes. Okay.
What the TNS news feed is freelance journalists, and we've got some agreements with some conservative news outlets who've got limited reach, and we republish their articles for them. We've also got some folks who really don't do a podcast on a regular basis. They just do one. And what we can do is share the word, that they put out. We put it in the newscasters, in the studio feed or the news feed, and pump it out so everybody can see it. We've got folks like Tom Bedsman, Lisa. I always butcher her last name, bless her heart, but she does a lot of stuff about what's going on in the Middle East. Todd does a lot of stuff about what's going on from an immigration standpoint, and then we've got other folks who will send us a video or write us or write an article. In the
Murray, those sound like potential guests for us.
Well, we do some what I call cross branding. So yes, sometimes we'll mix and match, and somebody will come on somebody else's show to talk about different things. So
this one here is I don't believe I've seen him before.
He just came on board about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
He's out of the Carolinas. He does a weekly radio show. Nice guy, Christian. He talks about, that's why he calls the show Christian Talk That Rocks. So he publishes a show, and we go from there.
Good.
The one I do is called The Washington Effect.
Right here.
Yep. And if you, like I said, if you click on it, what happens is it shows you all the shows that I've done. Okay. And the last thing that we've put together, scroll on up a little bit further, if you wouldn't mind. We have what we call the Insights page. And what the Insight page is.
Up here. Okay.
Yep. If you click on it, it's opinion pieces. So if somebody doesn't really want to talk about a particular event, if they've got an opinion on a situation, or they feel like it's important, like Terry did a article on why books are important to help shape the people. And so we publish those in the way of opinion pieces. So we have podcasts, we have video cast, we have a news feed, and we also have opinion pieces. So what we're trying to do is provide everyone with a good view of what's going on. They're not, like I said, they're not snippets. Average show goes 15 to 20 minutes. Some go an hour. And there's a lot of information that is shared with people. And the results have been real good. We're now our shows and our articles and whatnot are now being seen in over 26 different countries. Everything from England to Chile to, of course, naturally here in the United States. but we talk about, certain different things.
I'll be honest, Murray, I have not looked at this part of your website, but I am now. I'm going to come back and check this stuff out. I hadn't gone this deep into it, so I'm glad.
Ken,
Ken, by the way, that looks like my library. I don't know if I've ever showed you that or.
Yeah, no, I've never seen that because everything I saw in your library was all on audio discs.
Oh yeah, maybe so. Yeah. Just looks so familiar. Yeah.
So that's sort of about us and what we're trying to do. Our goal is we'll never be the largest podcasting platform. Don't intend to be the largest, but what we want to do is bring people on board to learn, find out information that they may not find anywhere else. Mark Meckler's been on the platform a couple of times. He's done some interviews with some of our folks. So he was able to, talk about convention states and his efforts and, from that. So, like I said, we have people come on from all over the place. It's
very interesting. I tell you this is just in the few months you've been up, this has grown so much from what I remember when you first started. And I'm sure, and we're going to have you back again, if you'll agree, maybe 6 months, and it'll probably be twice as big.
We hope so. I say we're out of the crib now. We're in the crawling stage and about to get up and walking in full motion. Have we had anyone censored yet? No. We ourselves do not censor. The only thing that we don't allow is a lot of profanity or nudity, that type of stuff. And the way we set these shows up, when it goes out into the social media world, they don't see the initial video or the initial audio, wherever it might be. The way we phrase it, we give it the right type of title and the right type of information. So let's say it's out on Facebook. Well, Facebook might, I don't like that, and they click it. Well, all they see is an image. They see an icon of the whoever's doing the show, or an image of the topic, and then the person clicks on it. It takes the individual to that particular show. We can't control YouTube. We can't control where the people have their shows coming in, like now, like you guys do, like several do. They provide stuff out of Rumble, or they do StreamYard, or however it might be. But if a show if they're doing all their shows and they want to share their video with us to expand their footprint, honestly, we can't control what happens there. But as far as we're concerned, we've never had a situation where we ourselves censor anybody. As long as they're being truthful, they're being honest, they're laying out the facts the way they need to be laid out. They're not doing a whole lot of yelling and screaming. They can have a studio. All they've got to do is, when they go to the website, there's a little button up there that says apply, and we have a little brief application that people can fill out, take a look at our T's and C's, I guess you might want to say, and there's no charge. So some of these services charge 10, 20, however much you want a month. We don't. So it is basically a free platform for people to get their word out.
Good deal. Good. Well, let's wrap it up here.
Okay.
What are your objectives? What do you want? What else are you going to try and accomplish this year?
Well, we've got it built now. I think the way it's going to work for everybody. Naturally, we as I said earlier, Dale, we'll never be the biggest, but we do want to continue to bring on good people who can talk about good information, so we can continue to express and as you say, truth in media. We want people, you don't get it very often, and we believe that what we can provide will be the truth and the honest facts that people aren't hearing everywhere. I get comments all the time on the shows that I do because I get down and dirty. I tell folks like it is, and that's what they need to hear, or the cold hard facts about what's going on. Yeah. And you'll be surprised that when you get a message back saying, I didn't realize that was occurring. So we provide the facts.
Sometimes that truth is hard to hear, Murray, but people have been so conditioned to hit with the emotions and the feelings of the mainstream media as well. They present as just feelings and emotions, and they like to drive people with that. And people need to understand that sometimes the truth hurts, but
Well, I always tell folks when I get the opportunity to speak to people, I'm going to give you the answer. I'm going to give you the answer that you need to hear, not the answer that I want you to hear. Now, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't work, but it always ends up going, that can't be true. And then when you lay it out and show them the facts, they go, I did not know that was occurring. So that's the best way to wake people up. And I think, more than anything else, Dale, that's one of our biggest objectives is to finally wake up the public to understand that you're not necessarily being told what you need to be told.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Murray, that's a wrap. Thank you very much for giving us your time this evening. And like I said, we will have you back again, and looking forward to seeing how you've progressed. And I'm glad we're a part of this with you. So
just one more thing before we do have an app now. So if you go to Apple, you go to Google, you can now download the Newscaster Studio app. So you can take it with you now.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that.
I forgot to mention that we do have an app in place, so you can go to the two stores and download it. And the app it is free also.
And it's the Newscaster Studio app. Is it?
Yes, sir. If you go to our website, if you go to every show now has the link to it at the bottom, but you go to the Newscaster Studio in either the Apple Store or the Google Store, and you can download it for your phone.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Murray. Have a good evening, bud.
You too. You guys, take care.
See ya.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I love what they're doing there. Yep.
I do too. Well, listen, Ken, very quickly, I want to get into John Ackerman has created another episode for us in his series COS Basics, and we'll bring it up here and start it off. Now, folks, this is basic training that you're going to see these people in. I'm kidding, Ken. Here, this is he created this thumbnail, and anyway,
just say it. You didn't get it.
So let's play this, and then we'll come back. And our next guest is Debbie Stewart. Debbie's going to be talking about the World Health Organization.
Got to come back for that. Yep.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
John Ackerman for Convention of States, Indiana. This is our ongoing series on COS basics. And the very first basic that we're looking at is the core values of Convention of States. Our first core value was to preserve constitutional originalism. And now we take a look at our second core value, which is to foster responsible self-governance. Responsible self-governance. Nobody likes to be bossed around. Nobody likes to be ordered what to do. We are Americans, and we like freedom. We want free choice. We want to make our own decisions about things. But the flip side of that is that every choice, every decision we make has consequences. And we've got to be grown up enough, mature enough to accept the consequences of our freedom, the consequences of our choices. You see, true liberty requires personal responsibility and individual accountability. Now, we hear that word thrown around a lot in news these days. Accountability. I'm going to hold whoever is responsible accountable for this action. And I often wonder, what does it mean to hold somebody accountable? Well, speaking just for myself here, I think the best accountability is self-accountability. I have tried to practice that, probably not perfectly, but I've tried to practice that for many decades now. When I mess up, I feel morally compelled to fess up, to admit my error, to admit my mistake, to hold myself accountable, to make amends if amends can be made and if they are to be made, and to correct the mistake and to learn from it and to go on from there. And so the culture that we have developed and continue to develop within the Convention of States organization is to empower everyone to make decisions, to take action, to learn from our mistakes, and to make adjustments as we move into the future. Our second core value is to foster responsible self-governance. To be continued.
Yeah, John's really getting into this, isn't he, Ken?
I think he's enjoying doing this this series for sure.
I think he is too, and I think he's doing a great job. So much more to come from John, folks. Stay tuned. So let's, without any further delay, let's bring on this young lady. I called Murray a young man. I'm going to call Debbie a young lady.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I think she's more or less the rose amongst the thorns, Dale.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'll tell you.
Well, we had to get you off to a good start, Debbie. After all these weeks of Dale giving you a hard time, I had to come up with something good for you.
Thank you.
Well, Debbie, I don't know what could possibly be controversial about the World Health Organization, but we'll let you go ahead and talk about it. So,
yeah, I see absolutely no controversy here.
Yeah, no problem here. Nothing could go wrong. No.
Right. And I'm going to camp here right on that first title for a minute, Dale, before just a little review of what the World Health Organization is.
Okay.
And, its acronym is the WHO. So if you see something about the WHO, it's probably the World Health Organization. It is a global body as part of the United Nations, started in 1948 to create health in the world, to, protect people and nations, keep the world safe, and serve the vulnerable. So its origin kind of sounds like good goals, and they're trying to coordinate across the 194 member states that are in the World Health Organization. The headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland, and the leader is a man named Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. I think that's how you say it.
That's a mouthful.
Yes. And so it's been going since 1948, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute, is that they have turned in the last few years to becoming where, especially during the COVID times, I guess it was 2020, 2021, they started to exert their views on what it is that all the countries of the world should be doing. And in a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the leader, Tedros, because you know as well as I do that an organization typically takes on the characteristics of the leader. It's very interesting. Tedros is the first director general of the World Health Organization. It's not actually a doctor. He's not a medical doctor. They call him a doctor because he has a philosophy doctorate, but he's not even a medical doctor. But his background is very interesting. He was a Marxist. He's part of a Marxist organization earlier in his life. It was the Tigray People's Liberation Front that became part of a known terrorist organization. So I guess that looked good on his resume, enough for him to lead the World Health Organization. I'm not really sure.
There's that Marxism again. There's
And he doesn't even have a medical degree. So you just kind of wonder, what did they hire him for? Right. And in addition to that, the World Health Organization has been controlled for decades by the Communist Chinese Party. So the CCP has been driving everything. And I think it's interesting that President Trump back in 2020, he in July withdrew us from the World Health Organization. He made the announcement, and I guess you had to make the announcement and you had to stay in it for a year, and then you could so that means in July of 2021 we could be fully drawn out of it. But he said, quote, China has total control over the World Health Organization. So it's just forced communism is what it is. And now they're going to implement that worldwide. And with some countries who live in that communist thing, that's fine. But there are many nations who do not. And two examples that the CCP's investment in the World Health Organization has paid massive dividends was first, Tedros even praised China for their transparency when all this was happening. I mean, he had only good things to say about China, but we all saw what was going on over there. It was awful.
yeah.
It was terrible what they were doing to the people there. And then Tedros was the one that said, hey, you can't call it the Wuhan virus. He forced the world to call it COVID-19 now. So I didn't realize he was kind of at the head of that. Very interesting. And the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty gives broad national authority to a non-American entity controlled by China. So countries may not necessarily know, but China is controlling this whole thing. So that should tell us something right there.
Yep.
Okay, so that kind of gives you an update on the World Health Organization. Now let's talk about recent updates. Okay. So about 2 years ago, the World Health Organization came up with a group of people that meet that's called the International Health Regulations, and there's amendments, and they're trying to come up with a pandemic treaty. So they want to, after we went through the COVID-19, they want to have a treaty that all of the 194 member states of the world would sign on to this treaty, be held accountable to it, and have to follow whatever they say. Okay, that's kind of the overall arching thing. They've been meeting for the last 2 years on a regular basis to try to come up with this treaty. Now, they've called it other names, an accord or an instrument or agreement, because we know in our country, if it's our treaty, we have to get 2/3 of our Senate to approve it. But by manipulating the word, they can sell it to you where maybe Biden just has to sign off on the treaty. And we are then part of the treaty, even though our Senate didn't approve it. And we're going to talk in a little while about what's some of the pushback we're getting on that. So they met last week, actually. They finished on Friday. They're supposed to be done by the end of this month to have that treaty completely ready to go. They meet on the 27th of May through June 1st at the 77th World Health Assembly. But they are not finished yet. They're getting pushback from some countries. They're trying to work through a lot of these details. And so that's kind of where that's at right now. So they've been drafting this thing for about 2 years. As of May 10th, which was Friday, the government agreed to continue their steady progress on the proposed pandemic agreement before the World Health Assembly at the end of this month.
So basically what they're trying to come up with is, if I understand this right, a set of rules and processes that would automatically go into effect if another pandemic is claimed, right?
Yeah, so it'll be a proposed new global system for pathogen access and benefit sharing. And it'll tell you what you're going to do. And we're going to go over what a few of those things are here in just a second.
All right.
And this member state is called the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body, the INB. They were established 2 years ago, and they're the ones that have been working on this treaty. Okay. So their goal is to finalize this agreement by the end of this month. And there was one of the co-chairs said, we must be prepared for the next pandemic. It's not a matter of if, but when. So they're planning on disease X coming along. they're calling it that, and it's very interesting that they're like putting words in people's mouth. They're already putting the fear out there that this is going to happen. So we need a global plan, and it would require us we would then lose our sovereignty in our health decisions.
Yes. I think you can already imagine what role the United States would play in this. What could possibly go wrong with this? No, yeah.
Yes, and they're wrapping some other things in there called One Health, and that's basically unifying plants, animals, and people. They're putting us all on the same level. So they literally could say, well, we need to save the rock. So in order to do that, you can't plant over in this area, or you can't do this. So they're taking the human and putting it on the same level as plants and animals.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they can use in order to have us do certain things that line up with whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah.
That's called the One Health. And I'll give you an example of this. It says that the World Health Organization demands that every government promote or establish a plan for One Health workforce training and continue education programs for public health, animal health, and environmental sectors. So you're literally going to have farmers and people like that have to go away for training for this whole One Health thing. It's crazy. It's so counterproductive.
Mm.
But all the power is in the World Health Organization. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's some of the critical areas are going to be food production and distribution. They're going to say, hey, we have a say in that. International travel and trade, infrastructure, development, climate change, all that's going to fall underneath that One Health thing. Two of their goals for the World Health is to, they want to plot the censorship of misinformation. They're calling it an infodemic. Right now, that's their word they're using.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they're going to try to control all that. And secondly, they want to meet to discuss the granting of increased surveillance. So they're granting themselves increased surveillance and control.
All right.
So it's very interesting.
What could possibly go wrong here? I don't.
Now, here's the thing. Tedros will have the power to unilaterally dictate what a public health emergency of international concern is. Okay? So he has the power to do it. Just one person has the power to do that. And that would supersede any sovereignty that the nations have. But here's what a PHEIC could be considered. They'll have the authority to require medical examinations, review or require proof of vaccination, place suspect persons under public health observation, implement quarantines, implement isolation, tracing of contacts, refusing you entry into places, and other things like that. So it is very high control.
Yeah, yeah.
So that, go ahead.
We have a quick question, and it has to do obviously with, I think we all know the answer to this, but I have to put the question up because Certain Elf was asking this. He wants to know, who are they saying is going to pay for all this stuff?
Oh, that's such a great question, because we're going to pay for it. And it's interesting. They're taking terms out of the existing international health regulation amendments, and they're changing them. So they're taking out things like the human population and taking care of people, and they're putting things in there like equity, inclusion. And so basically, that's why Britain is pulling out, because they were going to have them like give 1/5 of their vaccines away, so other nations who don't have as much money get more. So it's basically a socialistic system. So the United States, we were putting in so much more money than others were. Trump was right to say, hey, why are we paying all this, right? And so they're going to make the richer nations pay more and the poor nations pay less. But our governments will be required to fund the World Health Organization.
Now, are we still in this?
We are now, because that's our next thing, is Biden's response. So let's roll that up there if we could. We are absolutely in it, and Biden is kind of leading the way. He's pushing this whole thing, and he wants them to, when they come up with it, he's planning on signing it over. And that's why there are some senators and congressmen and attorney generals that are saying, hey, hang on, we need to get 2/3 of the Senate approval on this.
Holy smokes.
So they're trying to blow it by that. Biden is kind of leading the way and giving the World Health Organization the power to declare a health emergency. Unfortunately, we were part of doing one of the amendments in there, and that says that this provision will require 194 of the UN members to place themselves underneath the World Health Organization. And we played a part in making that proposed amendment. Well, we got John Kerry, the climate czar. He's in there too, right? And so Biden is all in. His administration is all in because it's Marxist.
Yeah.
And guess what our Biden administration is?
Yep.
I mean, they're siding with China in a lot of things. So if Trump were to come back, he would change all that most likely again.
But you said if we pull out, we have a year. We have to wait a year before we can actually exit the.
I think you have to wait a year. Now that's what it was back in 2020. I don't know if that's changed. I don't know if that necessarily means we have to follow everything, but we can't fully withdraw out of it. I think you have to wait a year.
Okay.
So, but I don't know in that year, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know all the details of that.
Okay, we got about 4 minutes left, Debbie. Let's. We probably need to bring you back again and talk some more about this. This is.
Boy, the time goes so fast.
Very interesting.
Okay, so the main deal here is that implications. We could lose our health sovereignty at the state and local level. Okay, now you've got some blue states that probably would go ahead and just be fine with that. But you have your red states, you have your governors, your attorney generals that are going to say, go take a hike. And so that's the good news about activism at the state and local level. But the World Health Organization is saying the only solution to any pandemic is the hasty development of a vaccine and mass vaccination. So they are in cahoots with Bill Gates and his organizations to push. They're trying to do a 100-day vaccine where as soon as they find out, they have it ready in 100 days, which is crazy. So control, I told you they're carefully wording amendments. They took the word should out and put the word shall in there 164 times, and that word shall is legally binding in the agreement.
Wow.
So let's just wrap it up with some current pushbacks here.
Okay.
Britain is refusing to sign it. There are 44 Republican senators right now in Congress that are urging Biden to reject the pandemic treaty. And also there are 22 state attorney generals that are opposing Biden's surrender of our sovereignty to the World Health Organization. And so they're they sent a letter to him saying, hey, we need to go through this thing here at the Senate. We need to know what it is. And then we are the ones that are supposed to approve it. And that's kind of what's happening, in addition to, just groups of people pushing back. There's the Sovereignty Coalition. There's organizations like that are pushing back. So here's the last part. I want to go to the conclusion because here's the things that people can do. And I only have 1 minute left, maybe.
Yeah, couple minutes.
So, so the first thing is we need to spread awareness. We need to let people know what's going on with the World Health Organization, because if they get so far along, it might be too late. We're already in it. And you can go to Citizen Go. If you just Google Citizen Go, you can sign the petition there. Also, Senator Ron Johnson's bill, which is S-444, and Representative Tom Tiffany's bill, HR 1425, would require that the Senate review the World Health Order treaties and would prevent their ratification unless 2/3 of the Senate does approve it. And 49 Republican senators are already on board and co-sponsoring this.
So is this going to come down as a treaty? or are they going to get around that?
Well, that's what all this is about, because they're trying to call it something different so that they can bypass the Senate. But the truth is, it'll be treated like a treaty. It'll have the force of law in international law. So it's really a treaty. So they're trying to change the name to fool everybody. And that's why, these guys wrote a formal letter to Biden saying, hey, you got to withdraw from this treaty. We're not doing this. We're going to pass a law.
So if it gets passed as a treaty or treated as a treaty,
Mm-hmm.
then does that override each individual state as far as how they can react to it?
Supposedly it will override our health decisions here. Yes, because then we are under international law. Now, international law was never supposed to be a part of our domestic policies here. But it's changed so much in the last 50 years that that's what's happening. So international law is beginning to affect, like the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. That was never supposed to affect our domestic policies, but well, it is to a lot of countries.
Okay.
So, and then the third area is you can ask your state legislators, your attorney general, your governor to reject the WHO's authority in our state of Indiana. Give your voice and support to that.
We have one quick question I want to get in before we get too over time here. So let's put this up and see if we can answer this for the viewer. Sure Enough wants to know, does the actions that federal government gives to WHO fall into the category of federal government overreach, as stated in the COS Article 5 statement?
Well, I would say that it's it's unconstitutional, first of all, because the treaty is supposed to go through the Senate. So it's unconstitutional to begin with. So yes, that's way overreach. It's unconstitutionally overreaching.
Yes,
so
I would
it
agree.
has to go through our U.S. Senate, and they have to give a 2/3 approval. It might not be called a treaty, but it is a treaty, and it's being treated that way.
Yeah.
Our executive branch in these last 3 or 4 years has overstepped and ignored all the stuff that seems to have to go through our legislative branch and so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, well, I think we have 3 branches of government have lost track of what their branch is, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For about 50 years now. Yeah.
All right, Debbie. Thank you very much, and we will definitely have you back again. As a matter of fact, I think we've got you scheduled for June 10th, I believe,
I think so.
for you to come back. Don't know what. Well, we got some other topics that we want you to pursue for us. So
that sounds great.
But I think we'll have to revisit this one again at a later date too.
Yeah, because we'll see what happens when they meet at the end of the month.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Debbie. Have a good evening.
You're welcome. Good to see you all. Bye.
Very interesting. Well, we've had a good show tonight, haven't we, Ken?
Yeah, we've covered a lot in a short amount of time, and you know what? It just keeps getting deeper and deeper, doesn't it?
It does. Well, let's wrap things up here, Ken. I wanted to mention that next week on our broadcast, we're going to have our state director, Dale Tipton, is going to brief us on the COS ham operators group. And he's played a major role in organizing this group. So he's going to update us on what's happening with that. And then we're also one of our volunteers, actually 2 of our volunteers, Gary Harbaugh, that is well known on our broadcast. Gary is going to interview one of our team members, comms team members, Charlie Myers, who has authored a book called The Devil in the Black Box.
Sounds interesting.
And so Gary has ordered the book and read it. So he is going to interview Charlie so we can learn what this book is about. So Charlie's a young man that has come on our comms team and doing a fantastic job for us. So Come to find out, he's an author as well. So
There you go.
well, our next roundtable is scheduled for May 27th, and which happens to fall on Memorial Day. And so we're planning right now to do one of our Meet the Founders series by Larry Hudson, who's been doing this, and the founder is Thomas Jefferson, that he has focused on most recently. And we're going to try and figure out a way to play one of his episodes. There's so much has been written about Thomas Jefferson. He's had to break it up into 3 different parts, and so each part is quite long. So I think instead of a best of on the 27th, I think what we'll do is we'll if we can manage to do this, Ken, we'll play one of the parts on Thomas Jefferson that Larry did.
Yep,
yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
I think that'll be very, very interesting. So with that, Ken, I think, I do want to also mention that we've got a couple episodes out there now on Convention of States Voices, COS Indiana Live Voices. This is our podcast series. We've got episode 12 and episode 13, where we interviewed Christy Stutzman, whose husband just won primary for Congress here in Indiana. And also episode number 13, Vicki Mooring, one of our outstanding region captains. So those are available on Spotify.com. So you definitely want to go and check those out. 2 great volunteers that we have here in Indiana. Ken, I'm going to forego the closing video tonight, and since due to time, and we'll close it out and call it a night. So
sounds good.
And let me get to our closing thumbnail. Everyone, thank you for joining us this evening. Have a good evening. Hope you enjoyed our guests this evening. We try very hard to bring on interesting guests and topics. So keep us in mind for next Monday evening. Should be another good one. So, Ken, you have a good evening. And everyone, have a good night.
Everybody.